Hello everyone, DM Seafood here, and this is the first in a series of videos I'm going to do called Dungeon 101. It's basically how to build a dungeon, run an adventure, that sort of thing in Roll20 for all of you aspiring DMs out there. What you're seeing on screen now is me making a map in a program called Inkarnate. There's lots of ways to get maps for your adventures and campaigns online. You can find using a quick Google search, or you can make your own in whatever like software that you prefer. I like Inkarnate because it has a lot of different options for like walls and outdoor environments and indoor environments, and it helps me to keep the maps consistent throughout the campaign so that players get a sense that they're in the same world, because everything looks similar and is lit the similar way and all that. Here I didn't start with a plan in mind, but I decided to go. I saw a cool wall in the Inkarnate options for catacombs, sort of like skulls in the wall, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, like underground in Paris, that sort of thing. So I decided to go with that, and here's me just building it. The walls take a long time, but it's worth it. And you start in a cavern. So you can have some natural walls there to begin with, and then it sort of goes through the catacombs to a more developed area. And what you want to do when you're planning out your maps is try not to make them too big, unless you're going for like an epic mega dungeon sort of look. But you can also just try and break things up into, I like to use the rules of 3, like a 3-act play, or like films, or beginning, middle, and an end for an adventure or a session. So this is me wrapping up the map here. It took about half an hour, and then we're moving over to Roll20, which is the virtual tabletop that I was forced to use thanks to quarantine and all that. But I've found that it's a really good virtual tabletop. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a fresh new map. There's a lot of maps here for South March, which is the West March campaign that I'm running with a couple of friends. So here we go, we've got a fresh new map, and the first thing you want to do is, of course, upload your map. Over on the right is the assets library, so you can upload a map to your library. There's also a cool search feature there if you're looking for like something to pop in. This is Fiji internet taking its toll, so it's taking a while to upload, but an important thing is to make sure that your map settings and your page settings for your map match the artwork that you're pulling up. There's multiple ways to check this, but it does help to help keep the grid consistent. If you're using like a program to build your map and it has a certain amount of squares, you want to make sure that the amount of squares on your Roll20 page match. So once the map is in, you just pop it, make sure it's in the map and background layer. And we're not going to touch it again once it's in that layer. And then there you go, it's placed. You size it up to make sure it fits the grid. And then the next step is we're going to be adding some monsters. So this is just a quick, there's a mistake there. I put it in the map and background layer, but you want to make sure you're in the object and token layer when you're making monsters or building creatures for encounters. So this is a skeleton archer that I'm making from scratch. There's the monster manual, of course, that you can pull a whole bunch of monsters from. But for this example, we're just going to be making a skeleton archer from scratch. I like to use the token bar to represent HP and armor class, so that you have easy reference when you mouse over a token. And this is a thing that you can do to make your life a little bit easier, is to make sure that you make a journal entry for your monsters. That way you can also give them a character sheet. So this is me filling out the character sheet for the monster. It'll help me to get a stat block at the end that I can have reference to, and click on certain portions of that stat block to actually roll dice on the virtual tabletop, which helps because it also does all of the calculations for you once you've set that up. So we have our stat block here. You don't have to fill it all out. All I needed was the base attributes for the monster and whatever damage, vulnerabilities, or resistances it has. And over on the right hand side of the character sheet, you can add in actions. So he's a skeletal archer. I gave him a short bow, based the damage on the stats that I gave him. For example, he gets a +1 to his short bow thanks to his dex of 12, which gives him a +1 modifier. All of that stuff you'll figure out once you look at some monster stat blocks and figure out how a monster is sort of built. And you'll be able to like just fill out a character sheet in no time once you get the hang of it. So yeah, the Skeletal Archer has a dagger as well. It's always cool to give your monsters, you know, like things that will happen in battle. So if you run up to a Skeletal Archer, he'll pull out his dagger rather than try and shoot you. And you don't just want one type of monster, so we're just going to make another Skeletal Fiend here, a more melee focused creature for the party to fight. Once again, in the options for the character sheet, you can also toggle whether or not you roll with advantage or whether damage is calculated. You can make sure those are turned on when you make your monsters. I went back and did that for the archer as well. And so we've got a fiend, we've got some archers, we're going to populate the dungeon a little bit. You can just copy paste tokens once they're set up in the journal, or you can drag them from the journal as well back onto your tabletop. And yeah, we're just going to place them around here. And you know what, let's make a quick boss monster now. What you want out of your boss is a bit more HP so that they last longer, but I've lowered the AC, so he's fairly easy to hit. What else? It's also cool to have like a little boss, a little showdown at the end of your encounter to make it a bit more memorable. So we're going to put him right at the end of the dungeon there. And since he's right at the end of the dungeon, he's setting up the what do you call it, the character sheet for him now. Setting up the character sheet. I gave the boss skeleton, yeah, just a little bit more movement so he can close the gap faster. He's got high strength, high dex, but of course low mental saves because he's undead. I only gave him one attack because I was imagining in my head level 1, like a level 1 dungeon run for this particular encounter. If it was slightly higher level, I mean, I would maybe give this boss a multi-attack. Maybe he can hit twice, just to help with the action economy. Because our players would, of course, just gang up on this Minotaur skeleton and beat him up, pretty much. Also, don't forget to put treasure in your dungeon. So, what I like to do is put little treasure chests on the map layer. That way, players can see it when they enter and they'll spot it. And when it's opened and you've handed the loot out, you can just delete it from the map layer. Another tip for Roll20 is if you're moving objects around and you want them to not snap to the grid, you can hold down the Alt key. And the last tip is to use the GM overlay layer. I like to use it to give myself reminders for certain parts of the dungeon. For example, those doors are locked there. You know, we'll put some hidden loot that the players can look for, like that skeleton is holding a magical weapon, that crate has some healing potions, and you can also use it to set up traps, because the GM overlay is only viewable to the GM. And the last thing you're going to be doing for setting up your adventure and dungeons is, of course, your player tokens. Players will send you their tokens. You set them up by popping them onto the map, giving them a name and a nameplate. Make sure they're controlled by the player that's joining your adventure. And once again, you can use the token bars for reference for HP and for armor class. You can also hit Control L when you're looking at a token, and that'll show you the vision that token has. So make sure that you reveal the areas of the map to your players so that they can look around and see your glorious adventure in progress. So as you're moving these tokens around for your players, you'll reveal more and more of the map using the reveal tool. If you've got the Fog of War turned on, which I do recommend you do. That helps with you know, just that sense of exploration. And lastly, yeah, don't forget to make journal entries for your players, because if you set up that for your players, then they can drag their token onto whatever tabletop or map that you've got, and it saves you a lot of time in the end, because you can easily reference them and pull them in when you need to. And that about wraps it up for the first building your first dungeon video. Up next, we'll probably go through a couple of other things for running D&D, like maybe less technical or we could do some more technical videos like how to do dynamic lighting and stuff like that in Roll20. But until then, thank you for watching. I hope this video helped, and I hope it makes you want to DM, because DMing is a lot of fun. We'll catch you next time. Bye!